Your father handed you a Craftsman screwdriver when you were 8 years old and told you it would last you the rest of your life. He was right. The handle was red and chrome. It fit your small hand perfectly. It had the word Craftsman stamped into the metal in clean block letters. You held it like it was the most important thing anyone had ever given you. That screwdriver is still in your toolbox today. Your father is gone. The company that made the promise is gone. But the screwdriver is still there because that was the deal. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. You have to start with the walk into Sears. If you grew up in America in the 1960s or the 1970s, your father took you to Sears on a Saturday morning at least once a month, and the destination was always the same, the tool department. You walk through the women's clothing, past the appliances, and past the lawn mowers. You turn the corner, and there it was. The wall, the whole back wall of the store, covered floor to ceiling in Craftsman tools, polished chrome catching the fluorescent light and gleaming back at you. The smell of metal and machine oil. The man in the blue Sears apron who knew every wrench and every socket and every drill bit by name, and who treated your father like he was the most important customer in the store, even though he was just a guy buying a quarter-inch ratchet on a Saturday morning. And you stood there next to him at 4 feet tall, and you looked up at that wall, and you understood for the first time in your life what it meant to be a man. A man had tools, good tools, tools that lasted forever, tools that had your name on them because you were going to pass them down to your son, and you were going to be that someday, the man with the tools. And it would all start with that wall. The Craftsman lifetime warranty. You have to talk about the warranty because nothing else in America worked the way that warranty worked. You bought a Craftsman wrench in 1968, and that wrench was guaranteed for the rest of your life with no receipt, no proof of purchase, no questions asked. You could walk into any Sears in the country in 1972 or 1985 or 2002 with a broken wrench in your hand, and they would hand you a new one. No paperwork, no phone call to a manager, no back and forth, just a new wrench, because that was the promise. Sears made that promise in 1927, and they kept it for 90 years. The first Craftsman tool ever sold in 1927 was still under warranty in 2002, according to Sears' own marketing material. Think about that. A tool sold the year your grandfather was born was still covered by the same warranty when you were paying off your mortgage. There was nothing else like it in American business. Not cars, not appliances, not televisions, nothing. Only Craftsman tools, only Sears, only that warranty. And you knew that when you bought a Craftsman wrench, you were buying a piece of your father's promise to you and your promise to your son, and you were buying it for life, forever. There was a legend that grew up around the warranty in the 70s and the 80s. People who could not afford new tools would scour garage sales and trash piles for old broken Craftsman wrenches. They would gather them up in a paper bag. They would walk into the nearest Sears. They would hand the bag of broken tools to the man in the blue apron. They would walk out with a bag of brand new Craftsman tools. Then they would sell those new tools at the same garage sales for cash. The Craftsman warranty was so strong it was effectively currency. People did this for years. Sears knew about it. Sears did not stop them because the warranty was the brand and the brand was the warranty, and there was no separating the two. By 2009, some stores had to limit exchanges to 3 pieces per visit per person because too many people were doing the trash to cash hustle. But the policy itself never changed. The promise stayed. That was Sears, that was Craftsman, that was America. Your father's tool chest. Every American garage in the 70s had one. The big red Craftsman roll-around tool chest had brass-colored handles, 7 drawers, and wheels that locked when you stepped on the brake. Your father bought it in 1974 from Sears. He paid for it on layaway over 6 months. The day he brought it home, rolled it into the garage, and started filling it with his old tools was one of the proudest days of his life. You knew it because he made you stand there and watch him do it. Drawer 1 was the wrenches. Drawer 2 was the sockets. Drawer 3 was the screwdrivers. Drawer 4 was the pliers and the side cutters. Drawer 5 was the measuring tools. Drawer 6 was the drill bits. Drawer 7 was the small parts and the loose hardware. Each drawer slid out smoothly on bearings that have not made a sound in 50 years because Craftsman built them right. That tool chest is probably still in your garage today. Same chest, same wheels, same brass handles. The red has faded a little, the decals are peeling, but it works. It works the same way it worked in 1974 because Craftsman built it for 90 years, not 90 days. The Christmas tool set. You have to talk about the Christmas tool set. Because for boys growing up in America in the 1960s and the 1970s, the Sears Christmas catalog arrived in October every year, and you spent the next 2 months reading it cover to cover. The tool section was always your favorite. The Craftsman socket set in the metal hinged case, the Craftsman screwdriver set in the wooden display rack, the Craftsman Model 109 mini drill press for boys 10 and up. You circled the items you wanted with a red pen. You showed the catalog to your mother, she made notes, and on Christmas morning you came downstairs and there it was under the tree, wrapped in green paper with a red bow, the metal hinged case. You picked it up. It had weight, real weight. You opened it slow, and there inside was a complete Craftsman socket set in chrome, glowing under the Christmas tree lights, and your father standing behind you smiling because he knew. He knew this was the moment you became a tool guy. The same moment his father had given him his first set in 1948. The same moment his grandfather had given his father in 1929. 3 generations of American boys becoming men over a Craftsman socket set on Christmas morning. That was tradition. That was inheritance. That was Craftsman. Peter Roberts. You have to know who Peter Roberts was. He was a clerk at Sears in 1963 in a small town in Tennessee. He worked in the tool department, and one day he had an idea. The socket on a wrench was a pain to remove because you needed both hands. He wondered if you could make a ratchet with a button on it that would release the socket with one hand. He went home. He built a prototype in his garage. He patented it in 1964. He brought it to Sears. Sears bought the patent for $10,000. Then Sears sold 100 million quick-release ratchets and made hundreds of millions of dollars on it. Peter Roberts sued Sears for fraud, and he won. He got his money. And every quick-release ratchet you have ever held in your hand was invented by a quiet man in Tennessee who worked at Sears and just had an idea one Saturday morning. That was Craftsman. That was the kind of company it was. The first time you used a Craftsman tool by yourself, you were probably 9. Your father was working on the car in the driveway, and he asked you to hand him the 3/8" socket. You knew what 3/8 meant because he had taught you. You opened the metal case. You found the socket. You handed it to him. He smiled. He said, "Good job." You stood there next to him for the next hour, passing him sockets and wrenches, learning what each one was for. And you did not say anything because you did not need to. The tools said it for you. The tools were the language between you and your father. The tools were how he taught you to be useful, to be careful, to do something all the way through, to not give up when the bolt was stuck, to use the right tool for the right job, to put the tool back in the drawer when you were done. Those lessons did not come from a book. They came from a Craftsman wrench in a man's hand on a Saturday afternoon in 1971. You carry those lessons with you today, even though your father has been gone for years. The first real job you did alone. You were probably 14, your father was at work, and your mother needed something fixed. The kitchen sink was leaking, the lawnmower would not start, the screen door hinge was broken. Whatever it was, you decided you would fix it yourself because you were not a kid anymore. You went out to the garage and you opened the big red Craftsman tool chest. You pulled out exactly the tools you needed because you knew which drawer they were in. Your father had taught you. You took the tools to the kitchen, to the backyard, to wherever the broken thing was. You knelt down. You worked slow. You used the right tool for the right job. You did not give up when the bolt was stuck. You finished the job. You stood up. The thing was fixed. You walked back to the garage and you put the tools back in the right drawer. You closed the chest. You did not tell anybody, but your mother saw. When your father came home that night, she told him. He did not say anything to you. He just walked into your room before bed. He stood in the doorway and he looked at you. He nodded once. That nod was everything. That nod was him saying you are going to be all right. That nod was him saying you are going to be a man someday and the tools are part of how you get there. That nod was the moment he stopped being your teacher and started being your father in a different way, and you carried that nod with you for the rest of your life. The day you inherited his tools, you knew it was coming. You knew for years that someday you would walk into his garage and his roll-around tool chest would be yours, but knowing it does not prepare you. He was 84 years old. The funeral was on a Tuesday. The wake was Wednesday. On Saturday, you went over to your mother's house with your brother and you helped clean out the garage. You opened the big red Craftsman chest. The drawers slid out smooth like they had in 1974. The sockets were still in their original metal hinged case. The wrenches were arranged by size the way he always arranged them. The screwdrivers were standing in their wooden display rack the same way. He had taken care of these tools for 50 years and you knew every single one. You had used every single one. You had handed every single one to him at some point, standing next to him in the driveway on a Saturday afternoon. Your brother got the table saw. You got the chest. You loaded it into the back of your truck. You drove it home. You wheeled it into your own garage, and it sat there for 2 weeks before you could open it again. Because the moment you opened it, you knew you were going to feel him standing next to you. And eventually, you did open it. And you did feel him there, and you have felt him there every single time since. That chest is your father. The tools are your father. And every time you pick up one of his Craftsman wrenches, you are holding his hand again. Then Sears died. Walmart came in the 80s and undercut Sears on every category. Home Depot opened in 1978 and Lowe's grew up alongside it, and together they took the tool business right out of Sears' hands. Then the internet came and Amazon came, and Sears just could not adapt. They tried to, but they could not. A hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert bought the company in 2005, and he ran it as a financial vehicle instead of a retailer, and the stores started closing. 2,000 stores closed between 2011 and 2017. 2,000. Every one of them used to have a tool department. Every one of them used to have a man in a blue apron. Every one of them used to have that wall of Craftsman tools, and they all closed. Quietly, one at a time, until there was almost nothing left. In January of 2017, Sears sold the Craftsman brand to Stanley Black & Decker for $900 million. They had to. They were running out of cash. The brand that had defined Sears for 90 years got sold off to raise money to keep the lights on a little longer. It did not work. In October of 2018, Sears filed for bankruptcy. The American retailer that had sold catalog homes through the mail since the 1880s, that had invented the modern department store, that had given America the Craftsman tool and the Allstate Insurance Company and the Discover credit card, was finished, done. The greatest American retailer of the 20th century could not survive into the 21st. Stanley Black & Decker tried to save Craftsman. They opened a brand new factory in Fort Worth, Texas in 2019 to bring Craftsman manufacturing back to America. The factory was supposed to be the symbol of the comeback. The Made in USA stamp would mean something again. Real American workers building real American tools the way Sears had done it for 90 years. In March of 2023, the Fort Worth factory closed. Machinery problems, cost overruns. Manufacturing went back to China where it had been since the early 2000s. The Made in USA dream died in a press release nobody read. And that was the end of the Craftsman comeback. Stanley still owns the brand. They still make tools and put the Craftsman name on them. They still honor the lifetime warranty on the old hand tools your father bought in 1974. But it is not the same. It is not Sears. It is not your dad's tool department on a Saturday morning. It is not the wall of chrome under the fluorescent lights. It is something else with the same name. The wrench is still in your toolbox. That is the thing that gets you, the wrench your father bought in 1968 from a Sears that no longer exists, made by a Craftsman company that no longer exists, with a lifetime warranty from a corporation that no longer exists. That wrench is still there. It still works. It still says Craftsman on the side. It still has that perfect chrome finish that catches the light from the garage window. You picked it up last week to tighten a bolt on the lawnmower. It worked the first time. It always works the first time because Sears made a promise in 1927 that the tool would last forever, and they kept that promise even after they died. The wrench outlived the company that made it. The wrench outlived the man who bought it for you. The wrench is still here. And every time you pick it up, you remember, if you grew up walking into Sears with your father on a Saturday morning, that memory is yours and nobody can take it from you. The store is gone. The wall of Craftsman is gone. The man in the blue apron is gone. The big red roll-around chest is probably still in your garage and it still works perfectly. The wrenches your father gave you when he passed are in your top drawer. The screwdriver he handed you when you were 8 is still on your workbench. And someday you are going to hand it to your own son or your grandson, and you are going to tell him the same thing your father told you. This will last you the rest of your life, and it will be true. Because Craftsman built it right once, a long time ago, when promises still meant something. If your father gave you a Craftsman tool, tell me which one. If you still have his red roll-around tool chest in the garage, tell me what year he bought it. If you remember walking into Sears with him on a Saturday morning, tell me which Sears. And if you have ever stood in your garage holding a 50-year-old Craftsman wrench and felt your father standing right next to you, tell me about it. I read every single comment.